What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk to you about why I went electric. I've always been a big car guy. Wanted to be a race car driver when I was growing up. Love shifting gears, love wrenching on cars, learning about cars. But this year, a lot of that changed. I still love my gas cars. Still want to buy all the gas cars. But today we're going to talk about why I now own 2 electric vehicles, one of which is the first new car I've ever purchased, a 2024 Ioniq 5 SE. This is the base trim, but when comparing this to the Model 3, to another Leaf, which we already purchased, it just made way too much sense not to stop into the dealership, and when I did, I left with one. Took me about an hour in and out. I had already done all my research, didn't really care which color. I ended up with the lucid blue, which I think looks best. The only other option I would have gone with is probably that teal, the gray teal. But we'll start from the beginning. We were looking for a car for my wife. She needed something reliable, cheap. She loved her Mini Coopers. I was not about to buy her a Mini Cooper knowing that I'd be the one wrenching on it every week. So we stumbled upon a Leaf. We went and checked it out and found out that the Vermont rebates were going to pay for almost the entire car. So we quickly ran out of the dealership, looked at every Leaf there was in the state around a particular price range we had chosen. And we found one for $12,000, 50,000 miles. Again, very skeptical about going into the electric world, but needed a decent car. So with the rebates, we were out the door on that particular car for $700. The rebates paid us around $12,000. So it was a pretty easy step into the EV world, where most people are looking at $40,000 or $50,000 cars and they can't quite justify it. It was pretty easy for us based on the price of the Leaf. Loved it. Used the public chargers down the street from our apartment for 6 months or so. In that time, we bought a house, fell in love with the Leaf, averaged about $5 a day charging the Leaf. There were obviously days where, I took place in some extracurriculars after work and forgot to charge the vehicle. So we woke up and had to kind of scramble through the day to make do. But for the most part, 95% of the time, maybe even more, 0 issues. Charge up overnight, wake up, do all your driving, charge before you go to bed. Life is good. Once again, even with the couple headaches we ran into with the Leaf, or not even with the Leaf, with forgetting to charge, still loved our decision. So happy we bought that car. I already put 15,000 miles or so on that car, and it's probably been 8 months of ownership. But we were in a position where we needed a second vehicle. My wife and I ended up sharing that vehicle for the 6 or so months as I traded in one of my Volvos to make the deal happen. Perfectly good running Volvo, just old and tired and begging for maintenance, as they all do at 200,000 miles. I think the hardest part of buying the Leaf was getting rid of that Volvo. But at the sum of $5,000 trade-in, it was a no-brainer. So, bought that car in March. Fast forward to September, 6 months later, I was chomping at the bit to buy a second vehicle. Didn't really matter what, I just needed to make the long commute from our new house. We have about a 45, no, it's just under 45, like a 42-mile one-way commute up here in Vermont, and needed something reliable and obviously efficient. And being a numbers guy that I am, I couldn't look past the amount of money I was spending on gas. My older Volvos love their premium fuel, being a turbo 5-cylinder, so I gave them just that. Filled up for $75 a week, $300 a month, and could easily go over that if I wanted to take a little Sunday drive. So that was kind of my baseline number when I was looking at a new vehicle and already owned a EV. That $300 a month for gas was just hovering over me, and I couldn't look past it. So the day that I purchased this Ioniq, I didn't wake up planning to purchase this Ioniq. I got a $500 Volvo in my messages from a buddy, and I was all gung-ho. I was ready to go and do some exhaust work on this thing and brakes, and I'm adding up all the money I'm about to put into this $500 Volvo. And I start very easily justifying the price of some of these newer EVs with all the rebates that are offered. And I call up the Hyundai dealership. At that point, I was shopping rebates. I didn't care what car you put me in. I wanted something efficient. I wanted something cheap, month to month. And I wanted something reliable. Those were, I think, the three main factors of my next vehicle. As much as I used to be brand specific, I really just didn't care about the brand. My thumb was hovering over the Tesla Model 3 order now button. As easy as that looks, to order up a Tesla for $250. And my wife goes, "Why don't we just call the Hyundai dealership? You are obsessed with that car. Every time you see it, you're obsessed with it, and by the looks of it, they're giving those things away." All right, so we call up the Hyundai dealership. My monthly payment on this brand new $52,000 MSRP vehicle is going to be less than $300 a month. And that $300 a month was what I was hoping to keep any car payment under, especially an electric car, because that $300 a month I now justify with the price of gas. So if I were to buy this old clunker Volvo versus a brand new Ioniq 5, the price of gas for the Volvo versus the payment, well, you have insurance. So insurance for the Volvo, I've insured 100 of them. They go for $50 to $70. If I have two cars on my policy, I tend to pay about $50 a Volvo per month. If I have that sole vehicle on the policy, it's about $70 a month. So call it $70 a month. My Hyundai bumped my rates up $100. So actually, for the Volvo, we'll use 50. Hyundai will use 100. So double the price on insurance. Go figure. You know, it's a $50,000 car versus a $2,000 car. What are the final determining factors? Well, the Volvo needs maintenance. It's a 20-year-old car. I could easily put $50 a month into my old Volvos. I used to do it every single month. Being a brand new car, and the catch here being that I had to lease it in order to lock in that $300 a month, I should not have to do a ball joint on this car for 5 years. And if I do, I would hope that the dealership will want to do that for me and will do it free of charge. And even if I do pay, let's be real, it's probably at least 2 years out. So I have 2 years of hopefully zero maintenance on top of the cost of Volvo ownership. I only pay for charges. So, like I said, we lived with the Leaf for 6 months on public charging before we got our house. It was a little bit of a crossover period. We got the house, we got the charger installed, but still used public charging until we moved in. Just moved in at the beginning of October. It's now the beginning of November, so got our first electric bill back. And after charging 2 electric vehicles at home with a 40-mile commute each way, 80-mile round trip, we pay an additional $100 a month on our electric bill. Now, I don't have a charger that clearly shows the draw that it takes from my electrical system at home. So I have to factor in things like the electric heater that we chose to run for a week while our heat was having issues. I have to factor in things like not using the home like a full-time residence until we started charging. So I did not have a baseline number or a accurate baseline number of what we really used for electric without charging vehicles, because we purchased the home, installed the chargers, started charging, and then moved into the house and used the lights on a daily basis. We don't have an accurate baseline to really determine if that $100 jump was strictly from charging or if it was from using more lights and using electric heaters inside. So with that being said, when I ran these rough numbers, and of course had to use estimates, it was a no-brainer as to why I would purchase a $50,000 vehicle in my early 30s over what you would probably think is the smarter option. I couldn't sleep before purchasing this vehicle, and it has been an amazing experience. So I understand that going and buying any 2024 vehicle at this point in our lives is a risk. It's one thing if your $2,000 Volvo blows up. It's another thing if your $50,000 electric car is having an issue that no one in your area can fix. So that was obviously a concern for me. But like I said, being a numbers guy, I could not pass this deal up. It made way too much sense on paper, and I had to try it. Now, although this isn't a spec video, I'll give you a couple specs on the Ioniq and why I went with it. The claim to fame for this vehicle is the charging speed, whereas the Leaf that we own, it's the smaller battery option. It's the 40 kilowatt. Charges at a rate of 44 kilowatts and can charge from 10 to 80 in about 45 minutes. Pretty good, actually, for being 5 years old. This vehicle being a 77 kilowatt, almost twice the size battery, can charge at a rate of up to 250 kilowatts per hour and can take on that same 70% charge from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes on the right charger. And although those chargers are few and far between, actually they don't exist in Vermont. The closest charger to me is on the way to Boston, and it's just on the Vermont and New Hampshire border. I do most of my charging at home now that we have a charger installed at our house. We did a 1450 outlet. It's a 50 amp circuit and it's a little bit overkill for the Leaf, but it is just fine for the Ioniq. Charges the Ioniq at 7 kilowatts, give or take, and can charge from, call it 0 to 100% in 10 hours. So I don't know about you, but I usually get home and spend 10 hours a night at home. So the time I spend charging, or the time I wait for my charge, is virtually nothing. I pull up to my house, I plug it in. It takes me maybe 10 seconds to plug in. When I get outside and I have my hands full and I have to unlock my car and unplug my car, it might take me a whole 10 seconds in the morning to unplug my vehicle. So charging time at home on a level 2 charger is not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is range. So the Leaf SV, once again, 40 kilowatt, that Leaf is projected to go about 145 miles on the guessometer. In real world Vermont driving, going 50, 60 miles an hour, having a bit of a lead foot, like I said, being a car enthusiast, and still enjoying that power, probably more so than the efficiency side of it. I get around 4 miles per kilowatt, and realistically can only go maybe 100 miles, maybe 110 miles on a charge on the Leaf. Do we ever go 120? No, because we're trying to save that last bit of percentage for the what if. What if there's someone on the charger? Well, we don't really deal with that too much, but what if that last hill before the house takes me from 15 down to 5% because it's cold out and, shit happens. So it's always nice to get home with a little buffer, but for the most part, we can do 100 miles in the Leaf. Doesn't sound like much, but for, call it $4 or $5, 100 miles is pretty good. Well, the Ioniq should charge for about $8 to $10 if my math hasn't failed me yet, and we can go. I've yet to do an actual range test, but based on projections and my average miles per kilowatt, I can easily go, as far as I'm concerned, 225, 250 miles per charge. And we're talking for $8. I mean, I still have people ask me, is it really cheaper? Is it really cheaper though? Is it? Well, it is. It actually is. Whereas I used to spend $75 for 1 week of driving in a gas car, an old, shitty gas car at that. I now spend, I might charge my Ioniq twice a week because we'll carpool. We work in the same town, my wife and I, so I might drive it 3, maybe 4 days a week on a busy week. So I am driving it less for obvious reasons. I don't want to drive my new baby into the ground on the first year. If you are thinking about getting into the EV market, in Vermont especially, I highly, highly recommend stopping into a Hyundai dealership. The biggest thing that got me into this car is the lease. Hyundai was offering up to like $20,000 in lease cash. And what that kind of means for me or you is if you go and lease the vehicle, they're willing to give you 20 grand off the sticker price today. Now, because we know that leases are not meant to save you money, when you mark that 20% off that 20,000 off the $52,000 MSRP, the number that I more or less signed up to lease this car at was $32,000 or $34,000 out the door. So that's how they determined my $300 a month lease payment. Still doesn't make quite as much sense, because if you lease another $30,000 car, you know, if it varies. It's not directly dependent on the MSRP, but more so the deal that the manufacturer is offering. So with my $300 a month, I'll spend around $3,600 per year, and around $12,000, $13,500, whatever it might be, over the life of the loan, of the lease, sorry. So after spending around 13 grand after 3 years, I will be able to purchase the car outright for $28,000. Well, that doesn't make much sense, because I bought it for $32,000, $34,000, and the buyout's $28,000. Well, that's what a lease is made to do. It's made to protect you during the life of the lease, but ultimately make money off of you if you choose to purchase the car outright. That 3-year evaluation of price is determined on day one, and I sign up for that $28,000 buyout on day one, regardless of what I do to the car in the 3-year period. But if we take away the savings, pretend as if I didn't get rebates and they just gave me the car for $300 a month, I'm getting a $52,000 car today for $300 a month, and after 3 years and $13,000, call it 14 if it makes you feel better, I will have the option to buy out this $38,000 car, because that's what I've paid off, is 14 grand. 38 is what I should buy the car out for, and 28 is what I will buy the car out for. You see what I'm saying? So there's a million different ways you could look at this as being a bad decision. Ultimately one, which is just, oh, you bought a new car, don't ever buy a new car, waste of money. You lost money when you pulled off the lot. So what did I lose when I pulled off the lot? 10, 20%. Let's choose 20, right? 20% of 50 grand is, well, 10 grand. 10,200 for that $52,000 vehicle. So I lost $10,000 right off the bat when I pulled off the lot, right? Or did I? But did I? Because, sure, I drove a $52,000 car off the dealership, and the first gas station I pulled into, it was a $40,000 car. But what I'm really paying for is a $30,000 car. So the money that I lost in the moment I drove off the lot, they gave me. I didn't even have to negotiate. This is all set up at the dealership waiting for you. I have never gone to a dealership and negotiated, well, for one, $12,000 off of a Nissan Leaf, or any car for that matter, or for two, $20,000 off. There's no other time in my life, and I didn't think there would be a time in my life that I would walk into a dealership and they would give me $20,000 off of a $50,000 car. If I was buying a $120,000 car, I would still be shocked that they're going to give me 20 grand off of a $120,000 car. I would be jumping out of my boots. If I could afford it, I'd probably do it. But I also didn't think I would be walking into a dealership, which I was raised never to go into. I was told from a very young age, you do not ever need a brand new car. Go buy the lease. Go buy the car that's off of a lease. Go buy the 2-year-old car, the 5-year-old car with a warranty. You never, ever, ever need to buy a brand new car, but when they're giving them away, it just seems like a no-brainer. I hope that sums it up. That's exactly why I went electric in the first place and went back for a second one within the first year. I couldn't be happier. Thanks for listening.